Then our next speaker is Ronan Chester, the Manager of Strategic Environmental Initiatives for the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority. Ronan is responsible for leading a portfolio of initiatives to advance the Port of Vancouver's sustainability leadership with a focus on air emissions, energy management, and sustainability strategy. Ronan has led a variety of environmental initiatives for the Port Authority, including the development of the port's sustainability framework and vision to be the world's most sustainable port. I love that. He co-led the development of the 2015 Northwest Ports Clean Air Strategy with ports of Seattle and Tacoma, the advancement of the Eco Action Program for ships, the Energy Action Initiative, the Non-Road Diesel Emissions Initiative, and the introduction of shore power to container terminals. Currently, Ronan is leading the Port Authority's Climate Action Program, and that includes initiatives to facilitate the use of clean technologies and alternative fuels. Thanks for joining us, Ronan, and over to you.
My pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always great to join a group like this and talk about something that's really so exciting and interesting to us, and always fun to have a meeting with someone who's in Halifax at the other end of the country. So pretty cool. I guess let's move forward to the next slide and get started. We have a small team, maybe 10 of us in the group that have been working together for 10 years now. And so it's been really interesting journey for us. I mean, I think that, a team was brought together at the Port Authority 10 years ago to kind of do this work. They didn't have this type of capacity. And the idea was, hey, there's lots of stuff to do in environment and air emissions and climate. And so along that road, a lot of interesting things have happened, and I just wanted to kind of cover, what I think, how this subject fits within the Port Authority's kind of philosophy and business approach. And so going back to this idea about, who we are as a Port Authority, we are the largest port. The most common method of kind of looking at a size of port will be in terms of tonnage. And, a lot of folks aren't going to maybe recognize at the outset that the Port of Vancouver at 140 million tons, makes it the largest port on the West Coast of North America, and really all the way down through the West Coast of Americas. And the only larger ports are going to be the Port of Houston and South Louisiana in North America. So third largest port in North America, the largest by far in Canada. I think there's a little note in the slides that were being presented previously about how if you take the next 5 largest ports in Canada and add them up, that's still not large enough to equal the Port of Vancouver. So another way to think about it is $1 out of every $3 in trade goes to Port of Vancouver. It's about 200 billion a year. You think about that from a greenhouse gas emissions perspective in the province. I think we're maybe about 5% of the greenhouse gas emissions in the province, but that 5% of activity, is moving 200 billion in cargo. So really incredible. This vision was really us kind of thinking about, wow, there's a lot of pressure on the port to grow. And what does a good future for us look like? We need to become clear about this. That's what this framework's about. There's more there that you can learn about if you find that interesting in terms of how we define a sustainable port. But let's move forward to the next slide. As part of this, we were undergoing a scenario planning process. So for those of you who have participated in such a thing, really interesting, inviting a whole bunch of different experts together, talk about key drivers of the future, what the port would look like in 2050. And some interesting observations in my involvement in that and helping to lead that work was, when you ask people about key drivers of the future, despite all the complexity, energy transition is one that seems like everybody agrees on. There's a lot of other factors out there that are going to influence success in the future, but energy transition, each time we go back and talk about the scenario planning, is always key. And we created the scenario chart, and I just want to point to the great transition in the top right. This was a scenario that over, reiterating the scenario planning a few different times, again with about 300 people each time, over several years, we kind of gravitated to the scenario and said, this is a scenario that we want to facilitate. This is a scenario where the capacity of the port continues to grow, but there's a shift to a low carbon economy. And I think if we get back into this scenario planning next year, we're going to end up seeing that as a zero emission economy. And, I just want to contrast that to the scenario in the bottom left hand, the missed boat. right? And I think that there's a good, kind of parallel here in terms of the energy transition that we're looking to facilitate, that if we don't get this right, if we don't get at it early, and if we don't do it together, then there's a good chance we're going to miss a boat here. And we will not have the opportunity to develop the energy infrastructure and systems that we need to allow this, Canada's largest port to continue to grow and do the work that it needs to do. So let's keep moving. So a quick overview, pie charts here showing you the sources of emissions in the port. And of course, we can kind of think of, on the greenhouse gas side, think about that in terms of the energy consumers in the port. But naturally red, that's marine, is going to be the majority of air pollutants on the left-hand side, or greenhouse gas emissions on the right-hand side. We have a fairly sophisticated emission inventory. This is one of the things we spend a lot of time on in the early years getting right. And we're at a great point now where we have GPS and all the container trucks. We can turn that into an emissions kind of model or estimate at any point in time. We're using obviously the satellite tracking of ships to do the same thing. So whole book there, the link at the bottom of that slide. It's the 2015 Port Emission Inventory. Anyways, if you're interested in this stuff, lots of interesting information on air pollutants, greenhouse gas emissions, all the data programs. But just give you that sense there where where the emissions are. We have a broad boundary. We're capturing ships as they come into passing Victoria, and they take on a pilot. And so it's a broad kind of spatial area going out there, about close to 30 nautical miles on the marine side. And then on the land side, the boundary for the inventory goes all the way up to around Hope. So we're capturing a lot of activity. And it's all this information that kind of guides our thinking. Let's move to the next slide. Here's the more interesting part here, and I'll break this down a bit for you. Again, we're seeing air pollutants on the left hand, greenhouse gas emissions on the right. And the black line there is forecasted cargo. So you can see here, we're seeing 2010 forecasted out to 2030. So just take a minute to process that the forecasted cargo growth for the Port of Vancouver is to grow to 200 million tons. That's a lot of growth. In the last 10 years that I've been with the Port Authority, we've grown by 40 million tons. That's bigger than the Port of Montreal. So the amount of growth and pressure on the gateway is really incredible. And in the bar charts here, you're seeing, of course, air pollutants or greenhouse gas emissions. And in the colored lines, you're now seeing whether that's the contribution from marine, rail, on-road, non-road, administrative, and all that kind of stuff. So, marine is going down on air pollutants. Emission control area that came in 2015 had a huge impact. So you can see a big step on air pollutants there. But if we shift over to the greenhouse gas emission story here, I think you see the fundamental problem is that with the forecasting growth up to 200 million tons, the greenhouse gas emissions are expected to grow. We look at, what are the kind of regulations that are ahead of us, how they're going to influence. We look at business as usual in terms of turnover of equipment, investment by operators. But at the end of the day, we have this predicament in that the greenhouse gas emissions associated with Canada's largest port are growing, not decreasing, and this is a problem for us. Let's move on to the next slide. So the Northwest Ports Clean Air Strategy, we got this started again 10 years ago with the ports of Tacoma and Seattle, just recognizing that from an air pollutant perspective, we share, the Puget Sound, Georgia Basin airshed, and as ports, we kind of wanted to work together on things like advocating for the emission control area that eventually came in and other things. But of course, in the new iteration of the strategy, which we're set to launch actually next week, we'll have our public release of the new strategy. This is the new vision for the strategy, and that's, simply put, just to get to, net zero by 2050. So I said that, greenhouse gas emissions at the Port of Vancouver are growing based on the demand for trade. And, while we have full confidence in the Government of Canada's climate plan for the nation to meet its targets at a national level, what we can see is that the largest port in Canada is not on track to conform with that. And, in a way, that's just not good enough for us. We want to see the port, aligning with the reduction targets and getting to zero. And so we have so much work to do then. This is kind of, setting us on this course with the other ports to figure out, how we can work together to help each other. And there's three areas here, very simplistic at the bottom, in terms of how we frame the strategy. Again, this will all be launched next week. So if you're interested, that document unpacks all this, what it means for each sector, but certainly we can see that what's, challenges ahead of us here are the enabling policy and regulation that actually advance zero emission technology imports. That's just not there today. The energy infrastructure, and of course, the demonstration of this. These are just 3 areas that we know right now that we need to get working on and make a difference on. So let's keep moving. So we have a whole bunch of different initiatives. I could do a whole presentation on any one of these. Eco Action Program for ships. This is an incentive program that we've had for 10 years where we provide close to a 50% discount on the harbor fees for ships that are cleaner. We're looking at introducing a new platinum level. So we have kind of, the bronze, silver, gold right now, and we're looking to introduce platinum. And platinum will really be around deep decarbonization strategies or practices that carriers take, such as using airfoils or hybrid systems. We had NYK, a Secura leader, call in November. It's a LNG powered vessel with a whole bunch of smart features that she's seemingly reduced her emissions 40%. Which is really fantastic. So ships like that, we're trying to really promote that. Also quieter ships. Blue Circle Award, we use to award those who participate the most in this type of program. Of course, we had shore power at the cruise terminal back in 2010. We introduced it into container sector just in 2018. So we want to continue to expand shore power, bring that out to other sectors where we can. Non-road diesel emissions program, we charge fees on the oldest diesel equipment. We charge operators fees so that it encourages them to change over that old equipment and at least get into new diesel, at least, because the new diesel has, as we know, advanced emission controls that will result in a lot less PM. Truck licensing, same thing. Right now, if you want to bring a truck into the port and get a license, the maximum age of that truck is 2014. It can't be any older than that. Climate Smart, we have training programs with tenants trying to help them measure and reduce carbon. Energy Action partnership with BC Hydro on energy conservation. LNG bunkering, super key to us right now in the marine sector. The Clean Technology Initiative, I'll touch on, and the World Ports Climate Action Program. This is a group of 12 ports working together, trying to figure out how to accelerate decarbonization of ports and shipping. And there's a big focus there on alternative marine fuels of the future. So just kind of showing there's a portfolio of things, and they're all great, they're all really interesting, but you know what? None of them are going to get us to a 30% reduction by 2030 or net zero by 2050. So hopefully what it's doing is maybe underscoring the challenge ahead. And in fact, the Port Authority can't do this alone. Let's move on.
Ronan, I'll just ask you to maybe speed through. I'm sorry to do that, but to speed through the next couple because we're starting to run behind. Thank you.
No problem. I just got a couple more slides here. So just a couple of quick things to touch on the Mar High Safe project. So when you're looking at using alternative fuels in marine sector, it's really challenging. If there's no code, standards, regulatory kind of body of knowledge on it, then it's not happening. And that's the world that we're in right now. Certainly with hydrogen, this is an initiative to try to take some steps forward and cure that. But if we look at even just LNG as a marine fuel today, there's still a lot of challenges in Canada in terms of getting LNG, advanced. And so I think that it goes to show that if we can't kind of move LNG forward as a marine fuel, then there's going to be a long ways to get hydrogen there. But we need to start now. So great initiative here. If we move to the next slide. This is just pointing to the project in Valencia, a partner in the World Ports Climate Action Program, similar to what I think was mentioned as a previous presentation. We do have some hydrogen fuel cell projects that we are keenly interested in seeing go forward in Vancouver. We have some more things we need to sort out to see them go forward. And this is a source of inspiration for us, this other project in Valencia, where they're getting these terminal tractors and a fueling solution on the ground with support from the government to make it happen. And this is kind of, in our view, what's needed to push it forward. If we go to the last slide here, the kind of Clean Technology Initiative is just saying this is a new initiative, partnership with the province, with the government of British Columbia, with their gracious support, to put some money together and help push and get some of these clean technologies out into the port. And so this is where we'd love to see hydrogen fuel cell go forward, but these projects are so expensive. And the Port Authority doesn't operate on tax dollars. We live off the rent that we charge on fees. And so anyways, really fun. We're excited about this. This will get launched. We look to get different technologies, battery electric and renewable diesel kind of deployed in different applications in the port. See this happening over the next 2-3 years. So this is an area where we want more participation and support from others. Let's go to the last slide. And just summarize that you can see that emissions at the port are, not on track to align with Canada's climate commitments. That's a problem for us as a port authority. You need this fundamental shift in energy systems, absolutely needed to achieve this vision that we have in our strategy and the vision for the organization. And we do believe that the leadership in these energy systems can become a competitive advantage for Canada's largest port. This is, I think, really something that we kind of need to think about the strategic implication here, and that we can't do this as a port authority alone. So certainly we need to, there's lots of obvious ways that we can start doing this now. And I think that that's part of what today is about, is kind of digging into this very topic more. So thanks for listening.